Pretty sure. Okay, it's going. Good lord. Tillable Cat is throwing down some embers too. Well, thank you. Some spilt tea. They're obviously so shocked at that chibi mage that someone spilled their tea. I think that's how that works. Something like that. A little bit of oh, why is my Ember hype things not working? Why is Oh boy. All right. Why that would be under events, right? Ember. Where's the Ember? Oh, you know what? I set it up for subs, but I did not do it. Okay, that's on my list of things to do. I'm a chucklehead. No wonder it's not working. I didn't set it up. All right, okay, but yeah, no, yeah, I need to. Yeah, okay. I got it for sub hypes. Sub hypes. There's going to be one for Ember hypes, just like that. So probably tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow. We're doing good, Rose. We're just about to hop into a story. So thank you in advance for any hosts. Thank you in advance for any follows. We're just going to do some solid reading. Don't forget, if you are enjoying the stream, please go right ahead, hit that share stream button there. Let your friends on Facebook or Twitter know what it is you like. Maybe they will like it too. In which case, we'll have more friends here. Let's do it. We've never read this one before. The Griffin and the Minor Canon. By the way, this book that I'm reading from right here, it's literally just called short stories. I have no idea what's in it. This might be cool. It might be garbage. I don't know. But we're going to find out. Let's do it. The Griffin and the Minor Canon. Over the great door of an old church, which stood in a quiet town of a faraway land, there was carved in stone the figure of a large griffin. The old-time sculptor had done his work with great care, but the image he had made was not a pleasant one to look at. It had a large head, with enormous open mouth and savage teeth. From its back arose great wings, armed with sharp hooks and prongs. It had stout legs in front, with projecting claws. But there were no legs behind. The body running out into a long and powerful tail, finished off at the end with a barbed point. This tail was coiled up under him, the end sticking up just back of his wings. The sculptor, or the people who had ordered the stone figure, had evidently been very much pleased with it, for little copies of it, also in stone, had been placed here and there along the sides of the church, not very far from the ground, so that people could easily look at them and ponder on their curious forms. There were a great many other sculptures on the outside of this church, saints, martyrs, grotesque heads of men, beasts, and birds, as well as those of other creatures which cannot be named, because nobody knows exactly what they were. But none were so curious and interesting as the great griffin over the door and the little griffins on the side of the church. A long distance from the town, in the midst of dreadful wilds scarcely known to man, there dwelt the griffin whose image had been put up over the church-goer. In some way or other, the old-time sculptor had seen him, and afterward, to the best of his memory, had copied his figure in stone. The griffin had never known this, until hundreds of years afterward he had heard from a bird, from a wild animal, or in some manner which is not now easy to find out, that there was a likeness of him on the old church in the distant town. Now this griffin had no idea how he looked. He had never seen a mirror, and the streams where he lived were so turbulent and violent that a quiet piece of water, which would reflect the image of anything looking into it, could not be found. Being as far as could be ascertained, the very last of his race, he had never seen another griffin. Therefore it was that, when he heard of this stone image of himself, he became very anxious to know what he looked like, and at last he determined to go to the old church, and see for himself what manner of being he was. So he started off from the dreadful wilds, and flew on and on until he came to the countries inhabited by men, where his appearance in the air created great consternation. But he alighted nowhere, keeping up a steady flight until he reached the suburbs of the town, which had his image on its church. Here, late in the afternoon, he alighted in a green meadow by the side of a brook, and stretched himself on the grass to rest. His great wings were tired, for he had not made such a long flight in a century or more. The news of his coming spread quickly over the town, and the people, frightened nearly out of their wits by the arrival of so extraordinary a visitor, fled into their houses and shut themselves up. The Gryphon called loudly for someone to come to him, but the more he called, the more afraid the people were to show themselves. At length he saw 2 laborers hurrying to their homes through the fields, and in a terrible voice he commanded them to stop. Not daring to disobey, the men stood, trembling. "What is the matter with you all?" cried the Gryphon. "Is there not a man in your town who is brave enough to speak to me?" I think," said one of the laborers, his voice shaking so that his words could hardly be understood, that perhaps the minor canon would come." "Go call him, then," said the Gryphon. "I want to see him." The minor canon, who filled a subordinate position in the church, had just finished the afternoon services and was coming out of a side door with 3 aged women who had formed the weekday congregation. He was a young man of a kind disposition and very anxious to do good to the people of the town. Apart from his duties in the church, where he conducted services every weekday, he visited the sick and the poor, counseled and assisted persons who were in trouble, and taught a school composed entirely of the bad children in the town, with whom nobody else would have anything to do. Whenever the people wanted something difficult done for them, they always went to the minor canon. Thus it was that the laborer thought of the young priest when he found that someone must come and speak to the Gryphon. The minor canon had not heard of the strange event, which was known to the whole town, except himself and the 3 old women, and when he was informed of it, and was told that the Gryphon had asked to see him, he was greatly amazed and frightened. "Me?" he exclaimed. "He has never heard of me. What should he want with me?" "Oh, you must go instantly," cried the 2 men. "Oh, he's very angry now, because he's been kept waiting so long, and nobody knows what may happen if you don't hurry to him." The poor minor canon would rather have had his hand cut off than go to meet an angry Gryphon, but he felt that it was his duty to go, or it would be a woeful thing if injury should come to the people of the town because he was not brave enough to obey the summons of the Gryphon. So, pale and frightened, he started off. "Well," said the Gryphon, as soon as the young man came near, "I am glad to see that there is someone who has the courage to come to me." The minor canon did not feel very courageous, but he bowed his head. "Is this the town," said the Gryphon, "where there is a church with a likeness of myself over one of the doors?" The minor canon looked at the frightful creature before him, and saw that it was, without doubt, exactly like the stone image on the church. "Yes," he said, "you are right." "Well, then," said the Gryphon, Will you take me to it? I wish very much to see it." The minor canon instantly thought that if the griffin entered the town without the people knowing what he came for, some of them would probably be frightened to death, just as if they'd seen a William Castle film, and so he sought to gain time to prepare their minds. "It's growing dark now," he said, very much afraid as he spoke that his words might enrage the griffin, "and objects on the front of the church cannot be seen clearly. It will be better to wait until morning if you wish to get a good view of the stone image of yourself." "That will suit me very well," said the griffin. "I see you are a man of good sense. I am tired, and I will take a nap here on this soft grass while I cool my tail in the little stream that runs near me. The end of my tail gets red hot when I am angry or excited, and it is quite warm now. So you may go. But be sure and come early tomorrow morning and show me the way to the church." The minor canon was glad enough to take his leave and hurried into the town. In front of the church he found a great many people assembled to hear his report of his interviews with the griffin. When they found that he had not come to spread ruin and devastation, but simply to see his stony likeness on the church, they showed neither relief nor gratification, but began to upbraid the minor canon for consenting to conduct the creature into the town. What could I do?" cried the young man. "If I should not bring him, he would have come himself, and perhaps end by setting fire to the town with his red-hot tail." Still, the people were not satisfied, and a great many plans were proposed to prevent the griffin from coming into the town. Some elderly persons urged that the young men should go out and kill him, but the young men scoffed at such a ridiculous idea. Then someone said that it would be a good thing to destroy the stone image, so that the griffin would have no excuse for entering the town. And this proposal was received with such favor that many of the people ran for hammers, chisels, and crowbars with which to tear down and break up the stone griffin. But the minor canon resisted this plan with all the strength of his mind and body. He assured the people that this action would enrage the griffin beyond measure, for it would be impossible to conceal from him that his image had been destroyed during the night. But the people were so determined to break up the stone griffin that the minor canon saw there was nothing for him to do but to stay there and protect it. All night he walked up and down in front of the church door, keeping away the men who brought ladders by which they might mount to the great stone griffin and knock it to pieces with their hammers and crowbars. After many hours, the people were obliged to give up their attempts and went home to sleep, but the minor canon remained at his post till early morning, and then he hurried away to the field where he had left the griffin. The monster had just awakened, and rising to his forelegs and shaking himself, he said he was ready to go into the town. The minor canon, therefore, walked back, the griffin flying slowly through the air at a short distance above the head of his guide. What? Did I skip a paragraph? Some young men suggested that the elderly people should offer themselves as a sacrifice to the griffin. Did I, one second. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Some elderly persons urged that the young men should go out and kill him. Some young should offer themselves the... Okay, is that what that was in reference to? Some elderly persons urging that the young men should go out and kill him? I thought maybe I missed a paragraph, because I certainly didn't. Okay. I don't know. Oh, you're okay, all right. I got confused. All right. After many hours, the people were obliged to give up their attempts, and went home to sleep. But the minor canon remained at his post till early morning, and then he hurried away to the field where he had left the griffin. The monster had just awakened, and rising to his forelegs and shaking himself, he said that he was ready to go into the town. The minor canon, therefore, walked back, the griffin flying slowly through the air, at a short distance above the head of his guide. Not a person was to be seen in the streets, and they proceeded directly to the front of the church, where the minor canon pointed out the stone griffin. The real griffin settled down in the little square before the church, and gazed earnestly at his sculptured likeness. For a long time he looked at it. First he put his head on one side, and then he put it on the other. Then he shut his right eye and gazed at it with his left, after which he shut his left eye and gazed with his right. Then he moved a little to one side and looked at the image. Then he moved the other way. After a while, he said to the minor canon, who had been standing by all this time, "It must be an excellent likeness. That breadth between the eyes, that expansive forehead, those massive jaws. I feel that it must resemble me. If there is any fault to find with it, it is that the neck seems a little stiff. But that is nothing. It is an admirable likeness. Admirable." The griffin sat looking at his image all the morning and all the afternoon. The minor canon had been afraid to go away and leave him, and had hoped all through the day that he would soon be satisfied with his inspection and fly away home. But by evening the poor young man was utterly exhausted, and felt he must eat and sleep. He frankly admitted this fact to the griffin, and asked him if he would not like something to eat. He said this because he felt obliged in politeness to do so, but as soon as he had spoken the words, he was seized with dread lest the monster should demand 6 babies, or some tempting repast of that kind. "Oh, no," said the griffin. "I never eat between equinoxes. At the vernal and at the autumnal equinox I take a good meal, and that lasts me for half a year. But I am extremely regular in my habits, and do not think it healthful to eat at odd times. But if you need food, go and get it, and I will return to the soft grass where I slept last night, and take another nap." It's like the friendliest griffin ever. The next day the griffin came again to the little square before the church, and remained there until evening, steadfastly regarding the stone griffin over the door. The minor canon came once or twice to look at him, and the griffin seemed very glad to see him. But the young clergyman could not stay as he had done before, for he had many duties to perform. Nobody went to the church, but the people came to the minor canon's house and anxiously asked him how long the griffin was going to stay. "I don't know," he answered, "but I think he will soon be satisfied with regarding his stone likeness, and then he will go away." But the griffin did not go away. Morning after morning he came to the church, but after a time he did not stay there all day. He seemed to have taken a great fancy to the minor canon, and followed him about as he pursued his various avocations. He would wait for him at the side door of the church, for the minor canon held services every day, morning and evening, though nobody came now. "If anyone should come," he said to himself, "I must be found at my post." When the young man came out, the Griffin would accompany him in his visits to the sick and the poor, and would often look into the windows of the schoolhouse where the minor canon was teaching his unruly scholars. "Sup, Chris?" All the other schools were closed, but the parents of the minor canon's scholars forced them to go to school because they were so bad they could not endure them all day at home, Griffin or no Griffin. But it must be said that they generally behaved very well when that great monster sat up on his tail and looked in at the schoolroom window. When it was perceived that the Griffin showed no signs of going away, all the people who were able to do so left the town. The canons and the higher officers of the church had fled away during the first day of the Griffin's visit, leaving behind only the minor canon and some of the men who opened the doors and swept the church. All the citizens who could afford it shut up their houses and traveled to distant parts, and only the working people and the poor were left behind. After some days, these ventured to go about and attend to their business, for if they did not work, they would starve. They were getting a little used to seeing the Griffin, and having been told that he did not eat between equinoxes, they did not feel so much afraid of him as before. Day by day, the Griffin became more and more attached to the minor canon. He kept near him a great part of the time, and often spent the night in front of the little house where the young clergyman lived alone. This strange companionship was often burdensome to the minor canon, but on the other hand he could not deny that he derived a great deal of benefit and instruction from it. The Griffin had lived for hundreds of years, and had seen much, and he told the minor canon many wonderful things. "It's like reading an old book," said the young clergyman to himself, "but how many books I would have had to read before I would have found out what the Griffin has told me about the earth, the air, the water, about minerals and metals and growing things and all the wonders of the world." Thus the summer went on, and drew toward its close, and now the people of the town began to be very much troubled again. "It will not be long," they said, "before the autumnal equinox is here, and then that monster will want to eat. He'll be dreadfully hungry, for he's taken so much exercise since his last meal. He'll devour our children. Without doubt he'll eat them all. What's to be done?" To this question no one could give an answer, but all agreed that the Griffin must not be allowed to remain until the approaching equinox. Sup there, Trask. After talking over the matter a great deal, a crowd of the people went to the minor canon at a time when the Griffin was not with them. "It's all your fault," they said, "that the monster's among us. You brought him here, and you ought to see that he goes away. It's only on your account that he stays here at all, for although he visits his image every day, he's with you the greater part of the time. If you were not here, he would not stay. It's your duty to go away, and then he'll follow you, and we'll be free from the dreadful danger which hangs over us." "Go away?" cried the minor canon, greatly grieved at being spoken to in such a way. "Where shall I go? If I go to some other town, shall I not take this trouble there? Have I a right to do that?" "Oh, no," said the people. "You must not go to any other town. There's no town far enough away. You must go to the dreadful wilds where the Griffin lives, and then he'll follow you and stay there." They did not say whether or not they expected the minor canon to stay there also, and he did not ask them anything about it. He bowed his head and went into his house to think. The more he thought, the more clear it became to his mind that it was his duty to go away, and thus free the town from the presence of the griffin. That evening he packed a leathern bag full of bread and meat, and early the next morning he set out on his journey to the dreadful wilds. It was a long, weary, and doleful journey, especially after he had gone beyond the habitations of men. But the Minor Canon kept on bravely, and never faltered. The way was longer than he had expected, and his provisions soon grew so scanty that he was obliged to eat but a little every day. And he kept up his courage, and pressed on, and, after many days of toilsome travel, he reached the dreadful wilds. When the griffin found out that the Minor Canon had left town, he seemed sorry, but showed no disposition to go and look for him. After a few days had passed, he became much annoyed, and asked some of the people where the Minor Canon had gone. But although the citizens had been anxious that the young clergyman should go to the dreadful wilds, thinking that the griffin would immediately follow him, they were now afraid to mention the Minor Canon's destination, for the monster seemed angry already, and if he should suspect their trick, he would doubtless become very much enraged. So everyone said he did not know, and the griffin wandered about disconsolate. One morning he looked into the Minor Canon's schoolhouse, which was always empty now, and thought that it was a shame that everything should suffer on account of the young man's absence. Who's this? He looked in... This is the griffin. This is the griffin. It does not matter so much about the church, he said, for nobody went there. But it's a pity about the school. I think I will teach it myself until he returns. It was the hour for opening the school, and the griffin went inside and pulled the rope which rang the school bell. Some of the children who heard the bell ran in to see what was the matter, supposing it to be a joke of one of their companions. But when they saw the griffin, they stood there astonished and scared. "Go tell the other scholars," said the monster, "that school is about to open, and that if they are not all here in 10 minutes, I shall come after them." In 7 minutes, every scholar was in place. Never was seen such an orderly school. Not a boy or girl moved or uttered a whisper. The griffin climbed into the master's seat, his wide wings spread on each side of him, because he could not lean back in his chair while they stuck out behind, and his great tail coiled around in front of the desk, the barbed end sticking up, ready to tap any boy or girl who might misbehave. The griffin now addressed the scholars, telling them that he intended to teach them while their master was away. In speaking, he endeavored to imitate, as far as possible, the mild and gentle tones of the Minor Canon, but it must be admitted that in this he was not very successful. He had paid a good deal of attention to the studies of the school, and he determined not to attempt to teach them anything new, but to review them in what they had been studying. So he called up the various classes and questioned them upon their previous lessons. The children racked their brains to remember what they had learned. They were so afraid of the griffin's displeasure that they recited as they had never recited before. One of the boys far down in his class answered so well that the griffin was astonished. "I should think you would be at the head," said he. "I am sure you have never been in the habit of reciting so well. Why is this?" "Because I did not choose to take the trouble," said the boy, trembling in his boots. He felt obliged to speak the truth, for all the children thought that the great eyes of the griffin could see right through them, and that he would know when they told a falsehood. "You ought to be ashamed of yourself," said the Gryphon. "Go down to the very tail of the class, and if you are not at the head in 2 days, I shall know the reason why." The next afternoon, the boy was number 1. It was astonishing how much these children now learned of what they had been studying. It was as if they had been educated over again. The Gryphon used no severity toward them, but there was a look about him which made them unwilling to go to bed until they were sure they knew their lessons for the next day. The Gryphon now thought that he ought to visit the sick and the poor, and he began to go about the town for this purpose. The effect upon the sick was miraculous. All, except those who were very ill indeed, jumped from their beds when they heard he was coming, and declared themselves quite well. To those who could not get up, he gave herbs and roots, which none of them had ever before thought of as medicines, but which the Gryphon had seen used in various parts of the world, and most of them recovered. But for all that, they afterward said that no matter what happened to them, they hoped that they should never again have such a doctor coming to their bedsides, feeling their pulses and looking at their tongues. As for the poor, they seemed to have utterly disappeared. All those who had depended upon charity for their daily bread were now at work in some way or other, many of them offering to do odd jobs for their neighbors just for the sake of their meals, a thing which before had been seldom heard of in the town. The Gryphon could find no one who needed his assistance. The summer had now passed, and the autumnal equinox was rapidly approaching. The citizens were in a great state of alarm and anxiety. The Gryphon showed no signs of going away, but seemed to have settled himself permanently among them. In a short time, the day for his semi-annual meal would arrive, and then what would happen? The monster would certainly be very hungry, and would devour all their children. Now they greatly regretted and lamented that they had sent away the Minor Canon. He was the only one on whom they could have depended in this trouble, for he could talk freely with the Gryphon, and so find out what could be done. But it would not do to be inactive. Some step must be taken immediately. A meeting of the citizens was called, and 2 old men were appointed to go and talk to the Gryphon. They were instructed to offer to prepare a splendid dinner for him on Equinox Day, one which would entirely satisfy his hunger. They would offer him the fattest mutton, the most tender beef, fish, and game of various sorts, and anything of the kind that he might fancy. If none of these suited, they were to mention that there was an orphan asylum in the next town. "Anything would be better," said the citizens, "than to have our dear children devoured." The old men went to the Gryphon, but their propositions were not received with favor. "From what I have seen of the people of this town," said the monster, "I do not think I could relish anything which was prepared by them. They appear to be all cowards, and therefore mean and selfish. As for eating one of them, old or young, I could not think of it for a moment. In fact, there was only one creature in the whole place for whom I could have had any appetite, and that is the Minor Canon, who has gone away. He was brave and good and honest, and I think I should have relished him." "Ah," said one of the old men very politely, In that case, I wish we had not sent him to the dreadful wilds." "What?" cried the Gryphon. "What do you mean? Explain instantly what you are talking about." The old man, terribly frightened at what he had said, was obliged to tell how the Minor Canon had been sent away by the people, in the hope that the Gryphon might be induced to follow him. Oh boy, a little sip of coffee here, man. So far, so good. You like this story? Yeah. It's better than what I thought it was going to be. Trask is a fan. All right. I am too. When the monster heard this, he became furiously angry. He dashed away from the old man, and, spreading his wings, flew backward and forward over the town. He was so much excited that his tail became red-hot and glowed like a meteor against the evening sky. When at last he settled down in the little field where he usually rested, and thrust his tail into the brook, the steam arose like a cloud, and the water of the stream ran hot through the town. The citizens were greatly frightened, and bitterly blamed the old man for telling about the Minor Canon. "Oh, it's plain," they said, "that the Gryphon intended at last to go and look for him, and we should have been saved. Now who can tell what misery you've brought upon us?" The Gryphon did not remain long in the little field. As soon as his tail was cool, he flew to the town hall and rang the bell. The citizens knew that they were expected to come there, and although they were afraid to go, they were still more afraid to stay away, and they crowded into the hall. The Gryphon was on the platform at one end, flapping his wings and walking up and down, and the end of his tail was still so warm that it slightly scorched the boards as he dragged it after him. When everybody who was able to come was there, the Gryphon stood still and addressed the meeting. "I have had a contemptible opinion of you," he said, "ever since I discovered what cowards you are. But I had no idea that you were so ungrateful, selfish, and cruel as I now find you to be. Here was your Minor Canon, who labored day and night for your good, and thought of nothing else but how he might benefit you, and make you happy. And as soon as you imagine yourselves threatened with a danger, for well I know you are dreadfully afraid of me, you send him off, caring not whether he returns or perishes, hoping thereby to save yourselves. Now I had conceived a great liking for that young man, and had intended in a day or two to go and look him up. But I have changed my mind about him. I shall go and find him, but I shall send him back here to live among you, and I intend he shall enjoy the reward of his labor and sacrifices. Go, some of you, to the officers of the church, who so cowardly ran away when I first came here, and tell them never to return to this town, under penalty of death. And if, when your Minor Canon comes back to you, you do not bow yourselves before him, put him in the highest place among you, and serve and honor him all his life, beware of my terrible vengeance. There were only two good things in this town, the Minor Canon and the stone image of myself over your church door. One of these you have sent away, and the other I shall carry away myself." With these words he dismissed the meeting, and it was time, for the end of his tale had become so hot that there was danger of its setting fire to the building. The next morning the griffin came to the church, and tearing the stone image of himself from its fastenings over the great door, he grasped it with his powerful forelegs and flew up into the air. Then, after hovering over the town for a moment, he gave his tail an angry shake, and took up his flight to the dreadful wilds. When he reached this desolate region, he set the stone griffin upon a ledge of a rock which rose in front of the dismal cave he called his home. There the image occupied a position somewhat similar to that it had over the church door, and the griffin, panting with the exertion of carrying such an enormous load to so great a distance, lay down upon the ground and regarded it with much satisfaction. When he felt somewhat rested, he went to look for the minor canon. He found the young man, weak and half-starved, lying under the shadow of a rock. After picking him up and carrying him to his cave, the griffin flew away to a distant marsh, where he procured some roots and herbs which he well knew were strengthening and beneficial to man, though he had never tasted them himself. After eating these, the minor canon was greatly revived, and sat up and listened, while the griffin told him what had happened in the town. "Do you know," said the monster when he had finished, "that I have had, and still have, a great liking for you?" I'm very glad to hear it," said the minor canon with his usual politeness. "I am not at all sure that you would be," said the griffin, "if you thoroughly understood the state of the case. But we will not consider that now. If some things were different, other things would be otherwise. I have been so enraged by discovering the manner in which you have been treated, that I have determined that you shall at last enjoy the rewards and honors to which you are entitled. Lie down and have a good sleep, and then I will take you back to the town." As he heard these words, a look of trouble came over the young man's face. "You need not give yourself any anxiety," said the griffin, "about my return to the town. I shall not remain there. Now that I have that admirable likeness of myself in front of my cave, where I can sit at my leisure and gaze upon its noble features and magnificent proportions, I have no wish to see that abode of cowardly and selfish people." The minor canon, relieved from his fears, lay back and dropped into a doze. And when he was sound asleep, the griffin took him up and carried him back to the town. He arrived just before daybreak, and putting the young man gently on the grass in the little field where he himself used to rest, the monster, without having been seen by any of the people, flew back to his home. When the minor canon made his appearance in the morning among the citizens, the enthusiasm and cordiality with which he was received were truly wonderful. He was taken to a house which had been occupied by one of the vanished high officers of the place, and everyone was anxious to do all that could be done for his health and comfort. The people crowded into the church when he held services, so that the 3 old women who used to be his weekday congregation could not get to the best seats, which they had always been in the habit of taking. And the parents of the bad children determined to reform them at home, in order that he might be spared the trouble of keeping up his former school. The minor canon was appointed to the highest office of the old church, and before he died, he became a bishop. During the first years after his return from the dreadful wilds, the people of the town looked up to him as a man to whom they were bound to do honor and reverence. But they often, also, looked up to the sky to see if there were any signs of the griffin coming back. However, in the course of time, they learned to honor and reverence their former minor canon without the fear of being punished if they did not do so. But they need never have been afraid of the griffin. The autumnal equinox day came round, and the monster ate nothing. If he could not have the minor canon, he did not care for anything. So, lying down, with his eyes fixed upon the great stone griffin, he gradually declined and died. It was a good thing for some people of the town that they did not know this. If you should ever visit the old town, you would still see the little griffins on the sides of the church. But the great stone griffin that was over the door is gone. Yeah, all right. Well, that was pretty good. Now, I saw the question come up. Well, what's up with the spelling of canon for the title? I don't know, but that is how it is. That is how it was spelt. Let's just go back. Yeah, that's what it's spelt in the title. And I don't know if it is a well. There's a footnote for it. What's the footnote? The footnote. Where are footnotes at? It just says written in 18. The footnote says written in 1887. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if that is a typo, like someone transcribing this particular thing here, or if it's supposed to be like that. Because I mean, the land of Canaan. Well, let's look that up. Land of. Yeah, also known as, it was okay. It was also called Phoenicia, and yeah, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Israel. It was that big region. So I don't know. Is I don't know. I don't know if that's like some kind of like deliberate reference or if it's just a typo. Don't know. What do you guys think? Yeah. You like that author? Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good story. Never read that one before. Yeah, that was kind of fun. We still have an hour to go. We can read some. Oh, what's the piece of? Oh, Bagay de Maupassant. Oh yeah, we've read that one. What's the man who was? The Fall of the House of Usher. This one here, the Sire de Malatoi's Door, is kind of really weird. Markheim, but that was really good, really good. I like that one. Yeah, I remember reading that. Anyway, then it's going to take a second. We're just going to find something, different to read. All right, what do we got? Which word? Shadowtronics. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I know the land of Canaan, like the promised land, but how that ties in to the title. Is it a typo that they had in there, or was it a deliberate reference in some fashion? Yeah, that's what we don't know. All right. Let's see, what do we got? I think we've read everything in our best Russian short stories, I think. The Darling. Yeah, that was a weird one. How long is this one? God sees the truth about weights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, we'll do this one. I actually read this one before. I don't think anyone, not sure if anyone remembers what's the one. Okay, sees the truth. Wait. Okay, here we go. Yeah, pick up, yeah, and this is Leo N. Tolstoy. Okay, I didn't know there was an N in the middle. Leo, we can do that. Leo N. Tolstoy. We'll do this one. We're gonna see what this one's all about. All right, actually, I'm going to have a little sip of coffee in the meantime. But there we go. Okay, so actually, for those who, just in case anyone is new to the stream here, by the way, there might be some. Hello there. But yeah, we read books here 5 days a week, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific. We read from novels. We read the entire things, work our way through them, 2 to 2.5 hours every day, starting at 10 a.m. Pacific. And yeah, we just read. We're currently reading. What are we reading? Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Good Lord. Okay, I'm just stumbling over everything. Good Lord, wow? Someone's painting a dragon with 770 views. That's a lot. Alrighty. Let's do it. I'm kind of waffling a bit. Yeah. Anyway, but and then on Sundays we have Short Story Sunday. So we just read short stories. Why is this? Can I aim it down a little more, maybe? No, too much. Something like that. I don't know what I'm doing. Who knows? Who knows what's happening? I don't. No, I'm cutting the top of my head off. All right, that's okay. There we go. Something like that. There we go. That's a little better. All right. Okay, are we good? Are we good to go? I think we are. So yeah, yeah, book reading in the morning, gaming in the evening. There we go. Just sipping a bit of coffee. Alrighty. Story number 2. God sees the truth, but waits. By Leo Tolstoy. I certainly do. Yes, we do. So that's going to be 6 p.m. tonight. Let me just pull it up. Wiki, The Stranger, 1946. Here we go. Like everything we do, of course, it is in the public domain. This one right here. The Stranger, with Loretta Young, Orson Welles, Edward G. Robinson. Yeah. Awesome film noir. A little film noir action. Very different tone from last week's The Fat Spy. Good Lord. All right. The fat spy. Right. Okay. Let's do it. In the town of Vladimir lived a young merchant named Ivan Dmitrich Askionov. He had 2 shops and a house of his own. Askionov was a handsome, fair-haired, curly-headed fellow, full of fun and very fond of singing. When quite a young man, he had been given to drink and was riotous when he had had too much, but after he married, he gave up drinking, except now and then. One summer, Aksionov was going to the Nizhny Fair, and as he bade goodbye to his family, his wife said to him, "Ivan Dmitrich, do not start today. I've had a bad dream about you." Aksionov laughed and said, "You're afraid that when I get to the fair, I shall go on a spree." His wife replied, "I don't know what I'm afraid of. All I know is that I had a bad dream. I dreamt you returned from the town, and when you took off your cap, I saw that your hair was quite gray." Aksionov laughed. "Oh, that's a lucky sign," said he. "See if I don't sell out all my goods and bring you some presents from the fair." So he said goodbye to his family and drove away. When he had traveled halfway, he met a merchant whom he knew, and they put up at the same inn for the night. They had some tea together and then went to bed in adjoining rooms. It was not Aksionov's habit to sleep late, and wishing to travel while it was still cool, he aroused his driver before dawn and told him to put in the horses. Then he made his way back across to the landlord of the inn, who lived in a cottage at the back, paid his bill, and continued his journey. When he had gone about 25 miles, he stopped for the horses to be fed. Aksionov rested a while in the passage of the inn. Then he stepped out into the porch, and ordering a samovar to be heated, got out his guitar and began to play. Suddenly, a troika. What is a troika? A troika is a Russian vehicle pulled by a team of 3 horses abreast. Okay. Oh, it's something about a group of okay, or a group of 3. Okay. Suddenly, a troika drove up with tinkling bells, and an official alighted, followed by 2 soldiers. He came to Aksionov and began to question him, asking him who he was and whence he came. Aksionov answered him fully and said, "Won't you have some tea with me?" But the official went on cross-questioning him and asking him, "Where did you spend last night? Were you alone or with a fellow merchant? Did you see the other merchant this morning? Why did you leave the inn before dawn?" Aksionov wondered why he was asked all these questions, but he described all that had happened, and then added, why do you cross-question me as if I were a thief or a robber? I'm traveling on business of my own, and there is no need to question me." Then the official, calling the soldiers, said, "I am the police officer of this district, and I question you because the merchant with whom you spent last night has been found with his throat cut. We must search your things." They entered the house. The soldiers and the police officer unstrapped Aksionov's luggage and searched it. Suddenly, the officer drew a knife out of the bag, crying, "Whose knife is this?" Aksionov looked frightened, and seeing a blood-stained knife taken from his bag, he was frightened. "How's there blood on this knife?" Aksionov tried to answer, but could hardly utter a word, and only stammered, I don't know, not mine." Then the police officer said, "This morning the merchant was found in bed with his throat cut. You were the only person who could have done it. The house was locked from inside, and no one else was there. Here is this blood-stained knife in your bag, and your face and manner betray you. Tell me how you killed him, and how much money you stole." Aksionov swore he had not done it, that he had not seen the merchant after they had had tea together, that he had no money except 8,000 rubles of his own, and that the knife was not his. But his voice was broken, his face pale, and he trembled with fear, as though he were guilty. The police officer ordered the soldiers to bind Aksionov and put him in the cart. As they tied his feet together and flung him into the cart, Aksionov crossed himself and wept. His money and goods were taken from him, and he was sent to the nearest town and imprisoned there. Enquiries as to his character were made in Vladimir. The merchants and other inhabitants of that town said that in former days he used to drink and waste his time, but that he was a good man. Then the trial came on. He was charged with murdering a merchant from Ryazan and robbing him of 20,000 rubles. His wife was in despair and did not know what to believe. Her children were all quite small. One was a baby at her breast. Taking them all with her, she went to the town where her husband was in jail. At first she was not allowed to see him, but after much begging she obtained permission from the officials and was taken to him. When she saw her husband in prison dress and in chains, shut up with thieves and criminals, she fell down and did not come to her senses for a long time. Then she drew her children to her and sat down near him. She told him of things at home, and asked about what had happened to him. He told her all, and she asked, "What can we do now?" "Oh, we must petition the Tsar not to let an innocent man perish." His wife told him that she had sent a petition to the Tsar, but it had not been accepted. Aksionov did not reply, but only looked downcast. Then his wife said, "It was not for nothing I dreamt your hair had turned gray. You remember? You should not have started that day." And passing her fingers through his hair, she said, "Vanya, dearest, tell your wife the truth. Was it not you who did it?" "So you, too, suspect me," said Aksionov, and hiding his face in his hands, he began to weep. Then a soldier came to say that the wife and children must go away. And Aksionov said goodbye to his family for the last time. When they were gone, Aksionov recalled what had been said, and when he remembered that his wife also had suspected him, he said to himself, "It seems that only God can know the truth. It is up to him alone we must appeal, and from him alone expect mercy." And Aksionov wrote no more petitions, gave up all hope, and only prayed to God. Aksionov was condemned to be flogged and sent to the mines. So he was flogged with a knot, and when the wounds made by the knot were healed, he was driven to Siberia with other convicts. For 26 years, Aksionov lived as a convict in Siberia. His hair turned white as snow, and his beard grew long, thin, and gray. All his mirth went. He stooped, he walked slowly, spoke little, and never laughed, but he often prayed. In prison, Aksionov learned to make boots, and earned a little money, with which he bought The Lives of the Saints. He read this book when there was light enough in the prison, and on Sundays in the prison church he read the lessons and sang in the choir, for his voice was still good. The prison authorities liked Aksionov for his meekness, and his fellow prisoners respected him. They called him Grandfather and the Saint. When they wanted to petition the prison authorities about anything, they always made Aksionov their spokesman. And when there were quarrels among the prisoners, they came to him to put things right and to judge the matter. No news reached Aksionov from his home, and he did not even know if his wife and children were still alive. One day, a fresh gang of convicts came to the prison. In the evening, the old prisoners collected round the new ones, and asked them what towns or villages they came from and what they were sentenced for. Among the rest, Aksionov sat down near the newcomers, and listened with downcast air to what was said. One of the new convicts, a tall, strong man of 60, with a closely cropped gray beard, was telling the others what he had been arrested for. "Well, friends," he said, "I only took a horse that was tied to a sledge, and I was arrested and accused of stealing. I said I'd only taken it to get home quicker, and had then let it go. Besides, the driver was a personal friend of mine. So I said, 'It's all right.' 'No,' said they, 'you stole it.' But how or where I stole it they could not say. I once really did something wrong, and ought by rights to have come here long ago. But that time I was not found out. Now I've been sent here for nothing at all. But it's all lies, I'm telling you. I've been to Siberia before, but I did not stay long." "Where are you from?" asked someone. "From Vladimir. My family are of that town. My name is Makar, and they also call me Semyonich." Aksionov raised his head and said, "Tell me, Semyonich, do you know anything of the merchants Aksionov of Vladimir? Are they still alive?" "Know them? Of course I do. The Aksionovs are rich, though their father is in Siberia, a sinner like ourselves, it seems. As for you, Granddad, how did you come here?" Aksionov did not like to speak of his misfortune. He only sighed and said, "For my sins I've been in prison these 26 years." "What sins?" asked Makar Semyonich. But Aksionov only said, Well, I must have deserved it." He would have said no more, but his companions told the newcomers how Aksionov came to be in Siberia, how someone had killed the merchant and had put the knife among Aksionov's things, and Aksionov had been unjustly condemned. When Makar Semyonich heard this, he looked at Aksionov, slapped his own knee, and exclaimed, "Well, this is wonderful, really wonderful. How old you have grown, Granddad." The others asked him why he was so surprised and where he had seen Aksionov before, but Makar Semyonich did not reply. He only said, "It's wonderful that we should meet here, lads." These words made Aksionov wonder whether this man knew who had killed the merchant. So he said, "Perhaps, Semyonich, you've heard of that affair, or maybe you've seen me before." "How could I help hearing? The world's full of rumors, but it's a long time ago, and I've forgotten what I've heard." "Perhaps you heard who killed the merchant?" asked Aksionov. Makar Semyonich laughed and replied, "It must have been him in whose bag the knife was found. If someone else hid the knife there, he's not a thief till he's caught, as the saying is. How could anyone put a knife into your bag while it was under your head? It would surely have woke you up." When Aksionov heard these words, he felt sure this was the man who had killed the merchant. He rose and went away. All that night Aksionov lay awake. He felt terribly unhappy, and all sorts of images rose in his mind. There was the image of his wife as she was when he parted from her to go to the fair. He saw her as if she were present. Her face and her eyes rose before him. He heard her speak and laugh. Then he saw his children, quite little as they were at that time. One with a little cloak on, another at his mother's breast. Then he remembered himself as he used to be, young and merry. He remembered how he sat playing the guitar in the porch of the inn where he was arrested, and how free from care he had been. He saw in his mind the place where he was flogged, the executioner, and the people standing around, the chains, the convicts, all the 26 years of his prison life, and his premature old age. The thought of it all made him so wretched that he was ready to kill himself. "And it's all that villain's doing," thought Aksionov. And his anger was so great against Makar Semyonich that he longed for vengeance, even if he himself should perish for it. He kept repeating prayers all night, but could get no peace. During the day, he did not go near Makar Semyonich, nor even look at him. A fortnight passed in this way. Aksionov could not sleep at night, and was so miserable that he did not know what to do. One night, as he was walking about the prison, he noticed some earth that came rolling out from under one of the shelves on which the prisoners slept. He stopped to see what it was. Suddenly, Makar Semyonich crept out from under the shelf and looked up at Aksionov with a frightened face. Aksionov tried to pass without looking at him, but Makar seized his hand and told him that he had dug a hole under the wall, getting rid of the earth by putting it into his high boots and emptying it out every day on the road when the prisoners were driven to their work. "Just you keep quiet, old man, and you shall get out too. If you blab, they'll flog the life out of me. But I'll kill you first." Aksionov trembled with anger as he looked at his enemy. He drew his hand away, saying, "I have no wish to escape, and you have no need to kill me. You killed me long ago. As to telling of you, I may do, or not, as God shall direct." Next day, when the convicts were led out to work, the convoy soldiers noticed that one or other of the prisoners emptied some earth out of his boots. The prison was searched, and the tunnel found. The governor came and questioned all the prisoners to find out who had dug the hole. They all denied any knowledge of it. Those who knew would not betray Makar Semyonich, knowing he would be flogged almost to death. At last the governor turned to Aksionov, whom he knew to be a just man, and said, "You are truthful, old man. Tell me, before God, who dug the hole?" Makar Semyonich stood as if he were quite unconcerned, looking at the governor, and not so much as glancing at Aksionov. Aksionov's lips and hands trembled, and for a long time he could utter not a word. He thought, "Why should I screen him who ruined my life? Let him pay for what I have suffered. But if I tell, they will probably flog the life out of him, and maybe I suspect him wrongly. And after all, what good would it be to me?" "Well, old man," repeated the governor, "tell me the truth. Who has been digging under the wall?" Aksionov glanced at Makar Semyonich and said, "I cannot say, Your Honor. It is not God's will that I should tell. Do what you like with me. I am in your hands." However much the governor tried, Aksionov would say no more, and so the matter had to be left. That night, when Aksionov was lying on his bed and just beginning to doze, someone came quietly and sat down on his bed. He peered through the darkness and recognized Makar. "What more do you want of me?" asked Aksionov. "Why have you come here?" Makar Semyonich was silent. So Aksionov sat up and said, "What do you want? Go away, or I will call the guard." Makar Semyonich bent close over Aksionov and whispered, "Ivan Dmitrich, forgive me." "What for?" asked Aksionov. "It was I who killed the merchant and hid the knife among your things. I meant to kill you too, but I heard a noise outside, so I hid the knife in your bag and escaped out of the window." Aksionov was silent and did not know what to say. Makar Semyonich slid off the bed shelf and knelt upon the ground. "Ivan Dmitrich," said he, "forgive me. For the love of God, forgive me. I will confess that it was I who killed the merchant, and you will be released and can go to your home." "It is easy for you to talk," said Aksionov, "but I have suffered for you these 26 years. Where could I go to now? My wife is dead, and my children have forgotten me. I have nowhere to go." Makar Semyonich did not rise, but beat his head on the floor. "Ivan Dmitrich, forgive me," he cried. "When they flogged me with the knot, it was not so hard to bear as it is to see you now. Yet you had pity on me, and did not tell. For Christ's sake, forgive me, wretch that I am." And he began to sob. When Aksionov heard him sobbing, he too began to weep. "God will forgive you," said he. "Maybe I am 100 times worse than you." And at these words, his heart grew light, and a longing for home left him. He no longer had any desire to leave the prison, but only hoped for his last hour to come. In spite of what Aksionov had said, Makar Semyonich confessed his guilt. But when the order for his release came, Aksionov was already dead. Yes, classic Russian writing. That is some sad, depressing stuff. Yeah, I read this a long time ago. Yeah, that's, Yeah, okay, yeah. Trying to find, what's his name? Howard. Yeah, I was gonna read something different. What is this? There we go. It is a good story, but man, it is oh, okay, let's go back page 1. Rattle of Bones. Changing our story real fast here. Yeah, Rattle of Bones by Robert E. Howard. Yeah, we got time for another one. time for another story. We'll see how well this one goes. There's again, this one's Solomon Kane story. Yeah. What's up there, Mr. Dentures? What's going on, man? What is going on? Oh yeah. Solomon Kane. Do 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 do. Okay, I need to take a little. Where did he go? I don't know. Okay, there was the dude. Okay, I don't know. There was a dude doing a little figurine painting. 770 people tuned in watching him. Must have been some good painting. All right. Alrighty. Let's see. Where are we at? Let's see. I just gotta check Twitter real fast. See if anything is there. Anything interesting. Oh. Yeah, okay, we have some likes in the line. Okay, all right. Yeah, so for those who don't know, yeah, so we're going to be reading to pretty much just to the top of the hour. Then we're going to have a little break, and there's some things I need to take care of, and then we'll be back. We'll be back with what are we going to be back with? Going to be back with a movie, yeah, The Stranger, 1946. It's going to be good. I've already downloaded it. It's in the super secret section if anyone needs a copy of it. All goods and smiles here, says Mike's Dentures. How can it be all goods and smiles after that really, really sad, depressing Russian story about a dude in jail for 26 years who gets posthumously pardoned? It's like, it's, I don't know. Yeah, it's like a still of a cat, said earlier there, yeah. Where is it? Oh, did it scroll off already? Yes, the fun-loving Russian writers. Yeah. He got his reward in the end. That's what I believe. Yeah, it's this kind of sucks that you miss that he managed to miss the vast majority of what could have been his I don't know. It's a difficult story. We're gonna watch a movie. Yeah, we got movies. Yeah, Sunday night's movie night there, Trask. Yeah. So, a Rookie Whistle's here. What's up? Yeah, so on Sundays, yeah, it's a little bit weird. So 2 p.m. Pacific to 4 p.m. Pacific is Short Story Sunday. Read those. Then I have to take a break for about 2 hours to take care of something. And then I come back at 6 p.m. Pacific, and we watch a movie, and then after that, we do some more story-oriented kind of stuff there. We're working out, it's going to be episode 2 of The Wolf Among Us. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to, oh boy, yeah, we had some crazy gaming going on yesterday. Man, we had like a full team going in, 4 out of 5, in Neverwinter. That was cool. Yeah, we had Rookie Whistle, we had Kate, we had Shadowtronics, myself, we had our squad of Dungeons and Dragons people running about. It was good. Later on, Phantasy Star, we had Rookie Whistle and Zombie Psychic. And we started off with Dead by Daylight with Misbehaven, Gloomy Squirrely, and Backward Lion. Yeah. Man, we were playing with a lot of people yesterday. A lot of people. That was good. You're going to do some Phantasy Star yourself tonight, all right? Yeah, it's pretty fun, if you're awake. Here's the schedule of events. These are all in, one sec. Copy. This is all in Pacific time, so make adjustments as necessary. Those are all the urgent quests coming up, like the big raids. Next week, starting on Tuesday, next Tuesday starts up, next Wednesday is the first of the Luther battles, and those are a lot of fun, Do 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 do. Oh, and oh yeah, I was gonna say yeah. Oh yeah, but before we get into our story here, I can't find my terrorist chat channel. Oh, you saw some Dead by Daylight? Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, it was kind of weird. It was the second week in a row I've had a bit of connection issues with Dead by Daylight. Except it seemed to be more Xbox Live than Dead by Daylight itself. Because when I get kicked out, I get dropped by the game from matchmaking, and I'd also lose Xbox Party chat as well. So losing the party chat seems to me that was more an Xbox Live issue than Dead by Daylight. But yeah, we had some good things there. We had one full escape there, and yeah, it's good. I'm getting better. I'm getting better. And it's a great game for co-streaming, because I mean, yeah, there's some there's some games that are just not good for co-streaming. Well, actually, most of them, it seems to me. But in Dead by Daylight, everyone is like just spread out all over the place, So it's fun. Christo the artist. Who's Christo? Are they that's the married? They're a couple, right? The Christos. They did that. All those. I think. Let me look that up. Oh no, that's not who I'm thinking of. Oh yeah, he is. He's that. Yeah, he is that dude. Yeah. Yeah. He did all that. He did all that stuff with his wife. Yeah. All right. Yeah, he put all the big fabric stuff up all over the place. Yeah, and I remember he did the big meditation banners all through Central Park in New York City. Yeah, he and his wife. Yeah. It was very much a team thing. Yeah. And then he did like a whole bunch of coverings over I forget which river it was, one of the big rivers in like the middle of America. Yeah. Wow. Okay, he was in his 80s. It's kind of weird. I remember he and his wife. Yeah, I guess we all get old. I guess. Yeah, but yeah, it just doesn't seem. Yeah, you only know Monte Cristo. Okay, that's not quite the same. Not quite the same. The Count of Monte Cristo. Yeah. It's kind of funny how people can get famous for just like really just. I mean, it seems like such an odd thing to like be considered art, just like wrapping stuff in fabric. But that was the thing that he and his wife did. Yeah, it's kind of weird because it's I'm just having a quick look at some of the articles there. It's really talking about him, but it's not really talking about his wife. But I'm back when they were doing the I forget the name of that thing in Central Park. It was really cool. But yeah, back then everyone talked like it was a husband and wife team. Alrighty. Connaught, what's up? Okay, here we go. We should get on with the story. We should do it. The Count of Monte Cristo. Oh, by the way, next weekend we're going to be reading The Most Dangerous Game, which people have been asking for a long time. And when they first asked for it, I was like, no, I can't do it because it's not in the public domain. Since then, it actually has. This year, it fell into the public domain back on January 1st, and it completely slipped my mind. And I think it was Zombie Psychic, I think it was, who was just like, it actually is in the public domain now. So I was like, okay, tell you what, we're going to do it next week. We're going to read that one. Or the Sandwich Monte Cristo with what? Good gracious. A Monte Cristo sandwich. I've never even heard of that, but I'm sure someone has. I'm sure someone's made it. Okay, here we go. So we're going to do some Rattle of Bones. First published 1929. Why is it in the public domain? Because it was published in Weird Tales magazine. You know the rest. Alrighty. No evidence of renewed copyright back when it was done in 2 separate times. So in the magazine, we're just reading the magazine transcription. "Landlord, ho!" The shout broke the lowering silence and reverberated through the black forest with sinister echoing. "This place hath a forbidding aspect, meseemeth." 2 men stood in front of the Forest Tavern. The building was low, long, and rambling, built of heavy logs. Its small windows were heavily barred, and the door was closed. Above the door its sinister sign showed faintly. A cleft skull. This door swung slowly open, and a bearded face peered out. The owner of the face stepped back and motioned his guests to enter, with a grudging gesture, it seemed. A candle gleamed on a table. A flame smoldered in the fireplace. "Your names?" "Solomon Kane," said the taller man briefly. "Gaston Lamont," the other spoke curtly. "But what is that to you?" "Strangers are few in the Black Forest," grunted the host. "Bandits many. Sit at yonder table, and I will bring food." The 2 men sat down, with the bearing of men who have traveled far. One was a tall, gaunt man, clad in a featherless hat and somber black garments, which set off the dark pallor of his forbidding face. The other was of a different type entirely, bedecked with lace and plumes, although his finery was somewhat stained from travel. He was handsome in a bold way, and his restless eyes shifted from side to side, never still an instant. The host brought wine and food to the rough-hewn table and stood back in the shadows, like a somber image. His features, now receding into vagueness, now luridly etched in the firelight as it leaped and flickered, were masked in a beard which seemed almost animal-like in thickness. A great nose curved above this beard, and 2 small red eyes stared unblinkingly at his guests. "Who are you?" suddenly asked the younger man. "I'm the host of the Cleft Skull Tavern," sullenly replied the other. His tone seemed to challenge his questioner to ask further. "Do you have many guests?" Lamont pursued. "Few come twice," the host grunted. Kane started and glanced up straight into those small red eyes, as if he sought for some hidden meaning in the host's words. The flaming eyes seemed to dilate, then dropped suddenly before the Englishman's cold stare. "I'm for bed," said Kane abruptly, bringing his meal to a close. "I must take up my journey by daylight." "And I," added the Frenchman. "Host, show us to our chambers." Black shadows wavered on the walls as the 2 followed their silent host down a long, dark hall. The stocky, broad body of their guide seemed to grow and expand in the light of the small candle which he carried, throwing a long, grim shadow behind them. At a certain door he halted, indicating that they were to sleep there. They entered. The host lit a candle with the one he carried, then lurched back the way he had come. In the chamber, the 2 men glanced at each other. The only furnishings of the room were a couple of bunks, a chair or two, and a heavy table. "Let us see if there's any way to make fast the door," said Kane. "I like not the looks of mine host." "There are racks on door and jam for a bar," said Gaston, "but no bar." "We might break up the table and use its pieces for a bar," mused Kane. "Mon Dieu," said Larmont, "you are timorous, monsieur." Kane scowled. "I like not being murdered in my sleep," he answered gruffly. "Ma faith," the Frenchman laughed, "we are chance met. Until I overtook you on the forest road an hour before sunset, we had never seen each other." "I've seen you somewhere before," answered Kane, "though I cannot recall where. As for the other, I assume every man is an honest fellow until he shows me he is a rogue. Moreover, I am a light sleeper and slumber with a pistol at hand." The Frenchman laughed again. "I was wondering how monsieur could bring himself to sleep in the room with a stranger. All right, monsieur, Englishmen, let us go forth and take a bath from one of the other rooms." Taking the candle with them, they went into the corridor. Utter silence reigned, and the small candle twinkled redly and evilly in the thick darkness. "Mine host hath neither guests nor servants," muttered Solomon Kane. "A strange tavern. What is the name now? These German words come not easily to me. The Cleft Skull. A bloody name, in faith." They tried the rooms next to theirs, but no bar rewarded their search. At last they came to the last room at the end of the corridor. They entered. It was furnished like the rest, except that the door was provided with a small barred opening, and fastened from the outside with a heavy bolt, which was secured at one end to the door jamb. They raised the bolt and looked in. "There should be an outer window, but there is not," muttered Kane. "Look." The floor was stained darkly. The walls and the one bunk were hacked in places, great splinters having been torn away. "Men have died in here," said Kane somberly. "Is yonder not a bar fixed in the wall?" "Aye, but 'tis made fast," said the Frenchman, tugging at it. A section of the wall swung back, and Gaston gave a quick exclamation. A small secret room was revealed, and the two men bent over the grisly thing that lay upon its floor. "The skeleton of a man," said Gaston, "and behold how his bony leg is shackled to the floor. He was imprisoned here, and died." "Nay," said Kane, "the skull is cleft. Methinks mine host had a grim reason for the name of his hellish tavern. This man, like us, was no doubt a wanderer who fell into the fiend's hands." "Likely," said Gaston, without interest. He was engaged in idly working the great iron ring from the skeleton's leg bones. Failing in this, he drew his sword, and with an exhibition of remarkable strength cut the chain which joined the ring on the leg to a ring set deep in the log floor. "Why should he shackle a skeleton to the floor?" mused the Frenchman. "Mon bleu, it is a waste of good chain. Now, monsieur," he ironically addressed the white heap of bones, "I have freed you, and you may go where you like." "Have done," Kane's voice was deep. "No good will come of mocking the dead." "The dead should defend themselves," laughed Lamarmont. "Somehow I will slay the man who kills me, though my corpse climb up 40 fathoms of ocean to do it." Kane turned toward the outer door, closing the door of the secret room behind him. He liked not this talk, which smacked of demonry and witchcraft, and he was in haste to face the host with the charge of his guilt. As he turned, with his back to the Frenchman, he felt the touch of cold steel against his neck, and knew that a pistol muzzle was pressed close beneath the base of his brain. "Move not, monsieur." The voice was low and silky. "Move not, or I will scatter your few brains over the room." The Puritan, raging inwardly, stood with his hands in air, while Lamarmont slipped his pistols and sword from their sheaths. "Now you can turn," said Gaston, stepping back. Kane bent a grim eye on the dapper fellow, who stood bareheaded now, hat in one hand, the other hand leveling his long pistol. Gaston the butcher," said the Englishman somberly. "Fool that I was to trust a Frenchman. You range far, murderer. I remember you now, with that cursed great hat off. I saw you in Calais some years agone. Aye, and now you will never see me again. What was that?" "Rats exploring yon skeleton," said Kane, watching the bandit like a hawk, waiting for a single slight wavering of that black gun muzzle. The sound was the rattle of bones. "Like enough," returned the other. "Now, Monsieur Kane, I know you carry considerable money on your person. I had thought to wait until you slept and then slay you, but the opportunity presented itself, and I took it. You trick easily." "I had little thought that I should fear a man with whom I had broken bread," said Kane, a deep timbre of slow fury sounding in his voice. The bandit laughed cynically. His eyes narrowed as he began to back slowly toward the outer door. Kane's sinews tensed involuntarily. He gathered himself like a giant wolf about to launch himself in a death leap, but Gaston's hand was like a rock, and the pistol never trembled. "We will have no death plunges after the shot," said Gaston. "Stand still, monsieur. I have seen men killed by dying men, and I wish to have distance enough between us to preclude that possibility. Ma faith, I will shoot, you will roar and charge, but you will die before you reach me with your bare hands. And mine host will have another skeleton in his secret niche. That is, if I do not kill him myself. The fool knows me not, nor I him. Moreover—" The Frenchman was in the doorway now, sighting along the barrel. The candle, which had been stuck in a niche on the wall, shed a weird and flickering light which did not extend past the doorway. And with the suddenness of death, from the darkness behind Gaston's back, a broad, vague form rose up, and a gleaming blade swept down. The Frenchman went to his knees like a butchered ox, his brains spilling from his cleft skull. Above him towered the figure of the host, a wild and terrible spectacle, still holding the hanger with which he had slain the bandit. "Ho, ho!" he roared. "Back!" Cain had leaped forward as Gaston fell, but the host thrust into his very face a long pistol which he held in his left hand. "Back!" he repeated in a tigerish roar, and Cain retreated from the menacing weapon and the insanity in the red eyes. The Englishman stood silent, his flesh crawling as he sensed a deeper and more hideous threat than the Frenchman had offered. There was something inhuman about this man, who now swayed to and fro like some great forest beast, while his mirthless laughter boomed out again. "Gaston the butcher!" he shouted, kicking the corpse at his feet. "Ho, ho! My fine brigand will hunt no more. I had heard of this fool who roamed the Black Forest. He wished gold, and he found death. Now your gold shall be mine, and more than gold, vengeance." "I am no foe of yours," Cain spoke calmly. "All men are my foes. Look, the marks on my wrists. See the marks on my ankles. And deep in my back, the kiss of the knout. And deep in my brain, the wounds of the years of the cold, silent cells where I lay as punishment for a crime I never committed." The voice broke in a hideous, grotesque sob. Cain made no answer. This man was not the first he had seen, whose brain had shattered amidst the horrors of the terrible continental prisons. "But I escaped," the scream rose triumphantly. "And here I make war on all men." What was that?" Did Cain see a flash of fear in those hideous eyes? "My sorcerer is rattling his bones," whispered the host, then laughed wildly. "Dying, he swore his very bones would weave a net of death for me. I shackled his corpse to the floor, and now deep in the night I hear his bare skeleton clash and rattle as he seeks to be free, and I laugh. I laugh. Oh, 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 how he yearns to rise and stalk like old King Death among these dark corridors when I sleep, to slay me in my bed." Suddenly the insane eyes flared hideously. "You were in that secret room, you and this dead fool. Did he talk to you?" Cain shuddered in spite of himself. Was it insanity, or did he actually hear the faint rattle of bones, as if the skeleton had moved slightly? Cain shrugged his shoulders. Rats will even tug at dusty bones. The host was laughing again. He sidled around Cain, keeping the Englishman always covered, and with his free hand opened the door. All was darkness within, so that Cain could not even see the glimmer of the bones on the floor. "All men are my foes," mumbled the host, in the incoherent manner of the insane. "Why should I spare any man? Who lifted a hand to my aid when I lay for years in the vile dungeons of Karlsruhe? And for a deed never proven. Something happened to my brain then. I became as a wolf, a brother to these of the Black Forest, to which I fled when I escaped. They have feasted, my brothers, on all who lay in my tavern, all except this one who now clashes his bones, this magician from Russia, lest he come stalking back through the black shadows when night is over the world and slay me. For who may slay the dead? I stripped his bones and shackled him. His sorcery was not powerful enough to save him from me. but all men know that a dead magician is more evil than a living one. Move not, Englishmen. Your bones I shall leave in this secret room beside this one, to—" The maniac was standing partly in the doorway of the secret room now, his weapon still menacing Kane. Suddenly he seemed to topple backward and vanished in the darkness, and at the same instant a vagrant gust of wind swept down the outer corridor and slammed the door shut behind him. The candle on the wall flickered and went out. Kane's groping hands, sweeping over the floor, found the pistol, and he straightened, facing the door where the maniac had vanished. He stood in the utter darkness, his blood freezing, while a hideous, muffled screaming came from the secret room, intermingled with the dry, grisly rattle of fleshless bones. Then silence fell. Kane found flint and steel and lighted the candle. Then, holding it in one hand and the pistol in the other, he opened the secret door. "Great God," he muttered as cold sweat formed on his body. "This thing is beyond all reason, yet mine own eyes, I see it. 2 vows have here been kept, for Gaston the butcher swore that even in death he would avenge his slaying, and his was the hand which set yon fleshless monster free. And he—" The host of the cleft skull lay lifeless on the floor of the secret room, his bestial face set in lines of terrible fear, and deep in his broken neck were sunk the bare finger bones of the sorcerer's skeleton. That's the end of that. Man, that's some little spoopy action going on there. Yeah, not too shabby. Anyway, yeah, so that was, what was that? That was, a bit of Robert E. Howard. Just, getting some stuff going there. Yeah. But there we go. That is the end of Short Story Sunday, I'm afraid. Something a little shorty. What's going on? How you doing, little shorty? Thank you for that new follow there, Olympic God. Thank you. Yeah, I catch up with chat best I can. So anyway, how are we all doing? I think everyone's too afraid to say anything right now. That story spooked him out big time. Anyway, so that was the story of what happened to a man imprisoned unjustly, rattled of bones. Quite different from the previous story by Leo Tolstoy. Which I forgot the name of already. God always knows but waits. God always listens but waits. Once again, featuring a man imprisoned unjustly. Yeah, a couple of different ways you can go with it, yeah. Oh, those are some nice little emojis. Where's that Michael Myers one from? Who's that? Is that a Reanimator one? Yeah, who is that? No, that's Ra Mike. Who's Mike? Don't know Ra. You like the stories today there, Travis? I'm glad you liked them. Yeah. Yeah, we had some good ones there. What did we start off with? We started off with the Griffin and the Minor Canon. Wait, that was yeah. All right. Yeah, I just found a book. It's literally called Short Stories. That's the title of the book, and it's just got a whole bunch of short stories, and I never read that one before. But there we go. So, okay, so here's the plan. It's just past 4 o'clock here. I'm going to be back in 1 hour and 50 minutes, and we're going to be watching The Stranger by, with Loretta Young, Edward G. Robinson, Orson Welles. There we go. There's the link to it. This movie, like everything we do, of course, is in the public domain. It's important to respect those things. Even though there's a big argument to be made, that the copyright durations are way too long. There they are. The Griffin one was nice. Yeah, that was pretty fun. That was pretty fun. It was. I'm not sure if it had like a big underlying message to it or not. But yeah, it was pretty fun. But yeah, there were 3 very different stories. Yeah, the actually, just taking a quick look at that. I'm pulling up the title of that Russian one again. One sec. That is God sees the truth but waits. Yeah. So we had the Griffin and the Minor Canon. That fantasy one there. Then God Sees the Truth But Waits by Leo Tolstoy, about a man unfairly accused of murder, thrown into jail for a crime he didn't commit. And then The Rattle of Bones by Robert E. Howard, once again about it's more to do with Solomon Kane. But he encounters someone who's just went insane after being unjustly thrown in prison. Yeah. The movie's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah. Anyway, yes, I'm going to be back 1 hour and 50 minutes. So we've got a movie. And then after that, we're going to do episode 2 of The Wolf Among Us. And then, I don't know, probably do some Fantasy Star just to wind the night down. Not staying up too super late because, of course, Monday through Thursday is coming up, and that means we're getting back to our novels. Yeah, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific. We're going to be continuing with Wuthering Heights. I believe we're about 40% of the way into it. Actually, I can tell you exactly. Just a minute, we'll pull that up. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. We're exactly 40% into it. About to start chapter 13. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, that's it. Thank you all for spending some time with me. Thank you for the new follows. Thank you for the Embers earlier tonight. Thank you for those. Those are awesome. I'm a huge fan of those. But yeah, most of all, thank you for your company. For anyone who's spent some time in here today, enjoyed a little bit of story time with us. I hope we got some entertainment out of it there. Thank you, Shadowtronics, for being on hand to rap people's knuckles when they misbehave. A fine moderator. Soviet missile. Good. Take these, says Soviet's missile. Oh, thank you very much. I will indeed. Thank you. Scrubbing the Halo. Oh, that reminds me. Halo tournament next Friday. Halo, because no one can beat me. No one. No, it's not possible to beat me at Halo 5. Halo details will be coming up in the next couple of days, but yeah. If you think you can beat me, take me on. Soviet's missile. Thank you very much for those ambers. Have you been here the entire short story Sunday session? Did you get to hear that Russian short story that we read by Leo Tolstoy? Yeah. I am making the wild assumption that you're Russian because you have your name is Soviet's missile. That's probably a big jump, but Calinero has got the ember. That's what I need to do too. I need to get a little hype thing. A little hype smiley. I do. But anyway, thank you, Soviet's missile. Thank you. I'm just waffling right now. So let me end the stream. I got to take care of some stuff. I got to finish it before 6 p.m. obviously. So I got to go. Back in 1 hour, 45 minutes, and we're going to have movie night. We're going to watch that. Then we're doing The Wolf Among Us. Then a little Fantasy Star. It's going to be a great time, and I hope you can be back to spend a little time with us. I'm looking real fast to see who I can throw a host to, who's a cool cat, who's not rated 18 plus. There we go. Here's where we're going. Here is where we are going. Okay, I'm gonna, okay. You'll have a good time with us. He's a madman. Or he's a very he's definitely mad. He's a very cool cat. I met him at the Halo Outpost Discovery last year. Here we go. Over to